Welcome in to Payoff Pitch, Action Network's Major League Baseball betting podcast. We are presented by BetMGM. Brendan Glasheen, joined by Tanner McGrath and Mike Iannello for Friday, June 21st. Best bets in Major League Baseball. First day of summer, right? Do I have that right? I always forget it's the 20th, 21st. Okay, first day of summer, tomorrow. Baseball, baby. You can hear best bets every Monday, Tuesday, and Friday mornings during the regular season. So subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to your podcast if you have not done so already. We also have our video version over on YouTube. So if YouTube's easier, no problem there. Please subscribe to the channel. A bunch of other great content over there as well. We do have a giveaway. We've been promising those the last couple of episodes here. Austin F21. You're a winner. Email podcasts@actionnetwork.com to claim your prize. We'll be doing these, I think, throughout the summer, at least through the month of June. But you will have the option of Action Swag or a 1-year subscription to an Action Pro account. So send an email, and if you haven't done so, leave your 5-star ratings and reviews to give yourself an opportunity. 14-game slate for Friday, gentlemen. We've got a Cubs day game tomorrow, as Mike brought to my attention. Shota is on the mound tomorrow at 2:20, Cubs and Mets. And then a night slate with some Apple TV mixed in there as well. Let's dive in. Tanner, I will turn to you first. Some good series, too, this weekend, including the Braves and Yankees. And that's where you are going to turn to for your best bet.
Braves at Yankees should be a fun one. I'm honored to do this first day of summer podcast with Mike, my partner in crime for the past 5 years here at Action Network. So this should be a fun show.
Can you explain, that story? What's that backstory?
Oh, we've been buddies since I started working here, like 5 years ago.
Oh, okay. All right.
We write a football column together, college football column. I'm starting with good pitching matchup. Chris Sale, Carlos Rodon. If you want to fade the Yankees, though, Mike's favorite team, the Yankees, you got to do it behind a lefty. You got to do it against a lefty. The Bombers obliterate righties, but they're much closer to a league average lineup against southpaws. Mere mortal 106 WRC plus against the side. And I think the key really is that most of their depth pieces and bench pieces hit much better against righties than against lefties. Like the two other lefties in the lineup, aside from Soto, Verdugo and Rizzo, are much worse against same side pitching. But the same goes for depth righties like Anthony Volpe, Gleyber Torres, Stanton, even Oswaldo Cabrera, Austin Wells. They've all been hitting significantly worse against the left side, and they will face Chris Sale, the surefire Cy Young candidate with expected run indicators in the mid-2s, whopping 30% strikeout rate with a walk rate below 5%. And I'm pretty sure, as of right now, he is the best slider in the game. This huge, lanky, sweeping glove side pitch that has a 42% called strike plus whiff rate and a 10% hard contact rate against. And sure, he's seen some slight regression over the past 3 starts, including a disastrous outing against the A's, which is super weird. But I think that's closer to standard variance than true regression. He's thrown 98 sliders over the past 2 starts, and he earned 27 whiffs on him. If he keeps doing that, he'll be tough to hit against, He also keeps mixing in a lot of changeups and sinkers, and that really helps him neutralize right-handed bats, which crushed him over the past few years. But for the first time in a while, his platoon splits look the same. And, I think he's locating everything so well. I truly think he's among the top 6 pitchers in baseball right now. I don't know if the Braves can hit Rodon. Their offense is so mercurial, especially without their leadoff hitter. Acuna just provided that floor at the top of the lineup. But I do know that their batted ball profile against lefties has looked good recently. Last 30 days against the side, low 37% ground ball rate, pretty high 30% fly ball rate, 10% barrel rate, pull rates and hard hit rates around 45%. That's good stuff all around. And look, with Rodon, the stuff looks tremendous, and it is tremendous. It grades out tremendous. But he continues to struggle on contact, a lot of hard hit balls, barrels. I don't think he'll continue to strand 80% of runners. And I think those two things explain the difference between his 3.2 ERA and his 4.2 expected ERA. A mark that he's pitched exactly to in his past 4 starts, by the way. And a big part of this handicap, though, is the bullpen matchup, because I continue to scream on this podcast and into the void about how overvalued and overrated the Yankees bullpen is. I mean, they're 6th in bullpen ERA, but they're 22nd in bullpen expected FIP, 22nd in bullpen strikeout minus walk rate, 24th in bullpen pitching plus. They're erratic. Clay Holmes and Luke Weaver are vastly overperforming, and they finally seen some regression recently. posted a 5.3 ERA over the past 2 weeks behind a 14% walk rate. They look terrible in that series loss against Boston. And meanwhile, during the same 2-week stretch, the Braves have posted a mid-twos ERA and Sierra behind a 30% strikeout rate in the bullpen. And while the Braves had an off day on Thursday to rest some arms, the Yankees were busy using 8 different pitchers to allow 17 runs to Baltimore. Clay Holmes also pitched on Tuesday and Wednesday. Ultimately, I think the Braves have a really considerable pitching advantage across all 9 innings. And the only time we can bet against the Yankees is against the Southpaw. So I'm taking advantage of what I can get.
Okay, very good. Yeah, that Thursday afternoon game, my God, it was
ugly.
That was a bleep show. I mean, good for the Orioles. But anywho, Mike, what do you got for us? Best bet for Friday, June 21st.
Well, first, I just want to say with the Yankees game, I was looking up at the when I was doing my player props quick dive. This kind of made me laugh out loud. Gleyber Torres is 0 for 17 in his career against Chris Sale. He actually did get hurt today, so that might actually help the Yankees' case if Gleyber's not in the lineup. But LeMahieu's 7 for 10 with 2 doubles and 3 homers, so maybe we'll finally get the first extra base hit of the season for DJ LeMahieu. But the Gleyber stat made me laugh out loud. But I think it's only fitting, since you're going to bet against my favorite team, I'll bet against your favorite team. This is actually your gambling favorite against my gambling favorite. I'm going to go with the Mariners. I'm actually going to pivot what I wrote in the doc to minus 150 over the first 5 innings. I'll kind of explain why I made that switch at the end. But Trevor Rogers has been terrible for the Marlins. He has a 5.9 ERA, and his 5.3 expected ERA says that is not likely to improve anytime soon. He's posted an ERA of at least 4 over 4 of the last 5 seasons. He's just not a good pitcher. He's in the bottom 20% of the league in expected ERA, expected batting average, strikeout rate, hard hit rate. He throws a fastball, sinker, changeup, and slider mix, all about 25% of the time. All of them have a negative run value. All of them have allowed a weighted on base average of at least 340. He has no good pitches. And on the flip side, I love George Kirby. I back him, I feel like, all the time. He has a 3.54 ERA, and it still feels like he's just not even close to his ceiling. I feel like he's in the game's top pitchers, but we really haven't fully seen that yet. He has a 3.18 expected ERA, and his obviously his strength is his location. He has elite command, and he doesn't miss the zone. And when he does miss the zone, he generates a good chase rate. So he's so good with his command. When I was digging through his stats, his game logs, I noticed it seems like he either has like a blow up game or is unhittable, and with very few games in between. He has 15 starts this year. He's allowed at least 4 runs 5 times, but then he's allowed 1 run or fewer 8 times. So he's going to either give up 5 or none. And, when you're kind of betting on him basically posting one of those elite games, and he's facing a terrible offense. So I like the odds of him doing that 0 or 1 run. The Marlins ranked 29th in the league in weighted on base average and weighted runs created this year. They can't hit. They're just, Jazz has been okay, but there's nobody behind him. So, and when Kirby has had his blow-up games, it's tended to be due to the home run, and the Marlins have the fewest home runs in the entire league. They have just 59 home runs in 74 games, so I'm not really afraid of that. Seattle's offense is finally starting to get going recently. God knows we need Julio to get going, but the Mariners are 11th in WRC plus over the last 2 weeks, so we're finally getting them going. The reason I made this pivot is I do like the Mariners bullpen more, so I do like the full game as well. But the Marlins were off on Thursday. The Mariners used 3 of their top 4 to 5 arms today, so I'd honestly just go with whatever you can get the better line at. Whatever line is shorter between the full game and first 5. Right now, it looks like it's actually the first 5. So I'd probably pull the trigger on that. Like I said, I like both, but I'm going to continue to back my guy Kirby here against this Marlins offense and Rogers.
I will say, speaking of overvalued and undervalued bullpens, I think the Miami bullpen is pretty undervalued. I like that unit. They really underperformed early in the season. So I would lean first 5 too, especially because Kirby's command is so good, as you say, and the Marlins can't hit anything. So.
Yeah, and he's you mapped out kind of the starts where he doesn't have it, and then the majority of starts where he does bring it, and he's brought it in the month of June so far. No blow ups to this stage for George Kirby in June. Let's find out if we're going to fade the public for tomorrow, for Friday, the 21st. Let's see. The Philadelphia Phillies are taking on the D-backs. D-backs played this afternoon, wrapped up their series with the Nationals. Phillies are home, 6:40 start, Apple TV. Taijuan Walker's on the mound facing Jordan Montgomery, as we know, signed with the Diamondbacks late in spring training. Technically, I think out of spring training, but anywho. Totals at 9.5. Philly minus 140 on the money line. Let's see what the 97% of the cash, 82% of the bets on the Phillies. Tanner, any angle potentially to back Montgomery and the D-backs, or is there another way you can play this?
I'm on the over, and I actually really quite like the over. I got over 9.5. I would probably play that to 10 even money. I'd probably make this 10.2, 10.3. This is a battle between two pitchers who have seen drastic velocity decreases year over year. I've documented some of Taijuan Walker's struggles this year on this podcast and everywhere else that I write. Velocity is just down across his arsenal, and it was brutal in his most recent start. His fastball was checking in close to 90 miles per hour. That's almost 4 miles per hour less on average than he was throwing last year. And it's not like he had great stuff before, but now it's really, really bad. Hence why he's, working with a 6% swinging strike rate. He's walking a few too many batters for my liking. He's still allowing way too much hard contact, 14% barrel rate and a 51% hard hit rate. And he's actually also on pace for a career low ground ball rate, 36%, which has introduced a home run problem. Career high marks in home runs per 9 innings and home run to fly ball rate. I value him as a replacement level arm right now. Expected run indicators in the high 4s to low 5s and a quarter WAR through 50 innings. And I think the Snakes can bash him around. They've been inconsistent mercurially on the year, but they do carry a 117 WRC plus against righties over the past month, and there are a lot of hard hit pulled balls in that profile. Montgomery is having a similar issue. His fastball, his heavily used sinker, is checking in 2 ticks under last year. The stuff profile is down drastically. He is striking out nobody and walking more batters than ever before. His strikeout minus walk rate is now down to 7%. That is half of his career average 15% mark. And, he finally put together a decent start in his last outing. 7 Ks over 5 shutout innings. But anyone could do that against the White Sox. I could go out and toss 3 innings against the White Sox who are slashing 220, 280, 340 as a team. The White Sox whiffed at 10 of his 22 changeups, which just like that won't happen against other MLB lineups. That's the only reason why he was able to get through that. And he's about to face a significant step up in competition against the hard-hitting Phils, who've posted a 126 WRC plus against Southpaws over the past month. I do admit the Phillies have an excellent bullpen, one of the best in the league, and they will be rested after having an off day on Thursday. But I'll happily fade the Snakes bullpen, which I hold in very low regard and have posted expected run indicators nearing 5 over the past 2 weeks. They also had to use Ryan Thompson and Paul Sewell to seal the win over the Nationals on Thursday. And perhaps the most important part about this handicap, I think we're getting good hitting weather in Philly on Friday. Near double-digit breezes out toward right center field. It'll be really hot, over 90 degrees, and the wind can really play at Citizens Bank. I'd imagine we could get like a 10% boost in the run environment. I believe Ballpark Pals weather model projects a plus 26% home run factor. Throw that together with a bunch of vulnerable arms and 2 half-decent offenses, and yeah, I'll take this over at anything better than 10 even money.
Tanner, how about a underdog? How's the board for dogs tomorrow? Anyone jump out to you?
Just horrible.
Yeah. No. So the one I'm looking at, I'm looking at is a market hasn't been released yet because I don't know if the Blue Jays have named a starting pitcher yet. I think it might be Yariel Rodriguez. But the reason why I'm kind of looking at the Jays is so Carrasco's going for Cleveland, and I've talked about how the changes in the Guardians Park this year have led to a drastically increased run environment and park factors, out the wazoo with a ton of easy home runs, ton of easy doubles. And Carrasco has a historic homer problem. I mean, 10 straight years of home run to fly ball rates in the mid 15%. And the Jays, nobody has underperformed at the plate more than the Toronto Blue Jays this year. I mean, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is underperforming his expected weighted on base average by like 50 points. And even you saw in this series against Boston, he had a few 110 mile per hour off the bat hits, 720 expected batting average that just found a glove in the outfield. And it's been like that all year long. And they just got swept by the Red Sox. So you think their market value is going to be a little bit deflated. Everyone's off on them because they can't hit anything. And then they're going to go to a good hitter's park against a pitcher that could give up a ton of home runs. And if Vladdy just keeps, if Vladdy elevates a little bit of those hard hit balls, only Ohtani has more hard hit the balls this year, by the way, than Vladdy. If he could just elevate a few of those in Cleveland, they're going to fly out of the ballpark. So that's the one I'm looking at. I'm really hoping they open as dogs because the Guardians are 45-25, but we'll have to see. We'll have to wait in the morning.
Okay.
Yeah, he also shaved his dreads, so who knows? To get a little extra velocity on that swing.
I think the longest dogs. So you already talked about the Marlins, but as Mike mentioned, he likes the Mariners. The other one would be the Dodgers and the Angels, and I'm good with that. Dodgers home, and then the A's to the Twins, which that one was a wild. Oh, you could maybe. Hey, I don't know. I mean, you tell me, Mike. Back-to-back games, Tampa and Minnesota go to extra innings, so I guess it depends on how you feel about the bullpen for Minnesota. I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud.
Well, since Tanner passed on the dog, I feel a lot better the fact that I'm cheating on my dog. I'm gonna take the Red Sox -105. They might not even be an underdog by Friday morning, but I'm taking them as a short faux dog. Faux dog's better than no dog. So I know some of the expected metrics have dipped a little bit recently, but I'm still very high on Cutter Crawford. And this is coming from a Yankees fan, so if I like a guy, you have to bank that in of how much better he actually is than I think he is. But his fastball has been terrific this year. Ironically enough, his cutter is the most room for improvement for Cutter Crawford. They should have named him Fastball Crawford. But his cutter has a 357 weighted on base average, but only a 327 expected weighted on base average. So I think we start to see his cutter come around a little bit. And he's just been on such a bad stretch. He's allowed 20 earned runs in the last 5 starts, but those were against the Brewers, Orioles, Braves, Phillies, and Yankees, who are all top 10 offenses. Before that stretch, he had only given up 14 runs in the previous 10 starts. So I'm buying low here on Cutter. The Reds offense has been super inconsistent. They've been up and down. Obviously, I talked them up last week. I do still like the Reds, but you kind of never know what you're going to get from them. TJ Friedel and Candelario both missed the last game with an injury. You can argue they're 2 of their best hitters, if not the 2 best, because Ellie's been ice cold. And the Reds are also much, much better against lefties. They're 27th in WRC plus against right-handed pitchers this year. So I like Crawford getting them at their worst splits. And then Boston is just red hot at the plate. They're 2nd in weighted on base average and 3rd in weighted runs created over the last 2 weeks. I mean, I know you guys are both Red Sox fans, but guys that nobody else has ever heard of, like Cedon Rafael, David Hamilton, Connor Wong, these guys are crushing the ball. I don't even know who they are. Devers and Duran have obviously been great all season, but I'm going to buy low on Crawford coming off a really tough stretch. I like him to bounce back, and the Sox are just red hot at the plate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
Cutter stuff hasn't dropped at all, too. Cutter stuff has like this stuff plus numbers have stayed the same, so it's clearly just variance. He was just hot in the early season. The reason why I'm thinking about taking this,
he also just played 5 buzzsaws.
Yeah. I mean, the reason why I was thinking about this one, but the Sox they have too many lefties in the lineup. So many lefties in the lineup. You're going up against Abbott, a lefty who doesn't have any stuff, but he's forcing more weak contact. It's all fly ball contact, but forcing more weak contact than any pitcher I know of right now. It's been really impressive to watch him pitch, actually. So, yeah, I lean that way, but I can't get there.
It's funny because all-star voting and whatnot coming up, like Devers is getting votes, but like Jared Duran could arguably be like an all-star. But like you said,
Duran is
like, no one knows who these guys are.
Duran is 4th among outfielders in WAR this year. 4th. I think it's Judge.
I thought you were about to say voting, so I was going to say what?
Yeah, I think it's like Judge, Soto, and then one other guy, and then Jaron Duran. It's crazy. He's having a hell of a year.
Wow. Okay, a couple more, then we'll get out of here. Tanner, one more side for you.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Padres at home against the Brewers, -150-ish. I don't know, Mike, how do you feel about Colin Ray? Give me 20 seconds on Colin Ray.
Colin Ray is a guy that I spent the first, you're going to say the word negative regression 17 times. He's a guy I've chased the negative regression for the first month and a half. It didn't come, and I gave up. I'm just convinced he's a guy that's going to have a 3.5 ERA and a 5.5 expected ERA the entire season. So I've given up chasing his negative regression. I just don't think it's coming.
And that's what everyone else has been saying, and that's what got me, because I'm like, this guy is running way too well, right? He has like you said, 5.5 xERA because of a 10% barrel rate. He has a 4.5 expected FIP because he has a 15% strikeout rate. He's not a ground ball pitcher, even though he's a pitch to contact sinker baller, and he has a lame duck stuff profile. He gets his cutter and sweeper across for like a lot of called strikes. He earns a lot of strikes with those pitches, which is something to consider, I suppose. But then you're going to throw him up against the Padres, who are a highly productive top 3 lineup against right-handed pitching because they are the most pesky, contact-based line drive lineup in the league. Luis Arraez and Jerickson Profar are always on base. And there's enough power behind those guys, Tatis, Machado, to drive others in. And I think Xander is still hurt. And I think I said this on the last podcast. I don't mind that because I think Xander's been so bad this year. Just, someone else could be better. Conversely, I do think that everyone likes how Dylan Cease looks. He goes for the Padres on Friday. The stuff looks great because the fastball is getting crazy ride. I think it's 17 inches of IVB, which is 91st percentile. The slider is cooking, 23% swinging strike rate, and that pitch is fueling his 30% strikeout rate. I also don't mind his curveball and limited usage, and I wouldn't mind seeing more cutters, actually. I think he could increase his cutter usage. That could make him a little bit more effective, especially with a better weak contact profile. But the best part about his game this year is improved command. Location plus rating over 100 for the first time in his career. A career low 7% walk rate. A few too many barrels. Again, that's the cutter thing. But still an improved hard hit rate over last year. And a good example of his improved command, actually, which I really like, Pitcher List records a stat called mistake rate, which is basically just a percentage of low stuff pitches that you leave in the middle of the zone. His 4% rate ranks 15th among qualified Major League Baseball pitcher. He's got good stuff, better command and control, and improved results. And I bet he pitches towards his 3.4 expected FIP for the remainder of the season. The Brewers, his opponent, are probably an elite offense against right-handed pitching. On the year, they have really good numbers. They posted some very questionable results over the past few weeks, mainly because they're not elevating anything. 50% ground ball rate over the past month, and they're not producing enough hard hit balls. 35% hard hit rate over the past month against the side. So their expected weighted on base average against righties over the past 30 days is just 280. That's the 4th lowest among MLB lineups during the stretch, at about 40 points lower than their counterparts on Friday. The Brewers are likely the better bullpen and defense, but I think those margins are very slim. Like, the Padres are still top 5 in defensive runs saved and top 10 in bullpen expected FIP. So I'm just going to go ahead and pay a bit of juice to back Cease in the ascending Padres lineup against Ray and the regressing Brewers lineup.
Yeah, so the only reason I'll push back on you a little bit there, and why I'm not on this, is I agree with everything you said. And if you just said to me, hey, Mike, who wins the Brewers-Padres game tomorrow? I would say to you, probably the Padres. So in that sense, I don't hate the pick. For me, it's like when you look on it very surface level, like you said, Cease has a 3.95 ERA, he's 6-6 on the year. Ray has a 3.29 ERA, and he's 6-2 on the year. So you're like, all right, they look similar on the surface. The Brewers are 14 games over 500. They've been, a top 3 team in the NL all season. So I agree with you in the sense that you kind of can see the negative regression coming for Ray here. I just think you're paying for that. They're priced at minus 150. All that negative regression, all the Padres improvement, all the right-handed splits, like that's all already baked in. Like if I'm betting on a guy for negative regression, I feel like I want to be like, the market thinks this guy's good. I think he's going to all of a sudden be bad. Where I feel like Ray's getting priced like he's bad. So you're kind of not taking advantage of the negative regression because it's built into the price. So I agree with you. I think the Padres are better in this situation, but I don't want to pay 150 for that assumption when it hasn't really been the case all year.
That's fair. They're probably a little overpriced, but I still like it. I still like it at 150.
For my last pick, I'm going to go with the White Sox Tigers under 7.5. This is just as simple as these two offenses are horrific. Everyone knows the White Sox are ass. They've been bad all year, but Tigers have been bottom 5 in the league over the last month on offense. They're just not hitting the ball at all. I forgot to list. Carpenter's still hurt. Carp's been out for a bit. And then Jack Flaherty has been phenomenal this season. I think people forget that like he was a legit Cy Young contender for the Cardinals in 2019, and he's basically been hurt for 4 years. So it's like he's finally healthy. He's got a 2.67 ERA. He has an 11.6 K through 9 rate, which is 4th best in the league. He's almost unhittable. And then Eric Fedde has been pretty strong for the White Sox. You know, he's got a 3.09 ERA, a 3.35 expected ERA. He keeps the ball on the ground. He doesn't allow hard contact. And, you know, like I said, the Tigers have just been really bad over the last month. So I think you're getting 2 pitchers I like against 2 offenses that have been terrible. So right now, 7.5 is at even money. I mean, if that ticked up to 8 at like minus 120, I would crush that. But I still like the under 7.5. And then in that same game, because just, you know, give one more player prop, Jack Flaherty strikeouts has been an absolute cash cow this year. He's averaging 7.5 strikeouts per game. And for some reason, his strikeout prop opens at 5.5 like every single game. I think of his 13 starts, it's been 5.5 like 9 times, and he smokes it. And then even when it's 6.5, he's been able to clear it in most games. He's gone over his strikeout prop in 11 of his 13 starts this year. And, you know, obviously the White Sox strike out a ton. If it's 6.5, I still like it at 6.5. So I'm all over Flaherty to get at least 7 strikeouts here.
It's also White Sox Tigers is the Jason Benetti series.
Oh yeah, revenge game.
Revenge series. I know they met opening weekend. They played the first series of the year head to head in Chicago, so that was more meaningful, I would imagine, because the Tigers swept them. But yeah, that's always fun, in my opinion. All right, gentlemen, very good. Mike Iannello, Tanner McGrath. I almost wanted to call you Tanner's Truth because that's what your name is in your video box as we record here. Find these guys in the Action app. As I mentioned at the top of the show, we're doing some giveaways. So if you have not subscribed to our pod, first of all, do that. Also, leave your 5-star ratings and reviews. That's how you can win some Action swag or a free, a 1-year subscription for free to Action Pro. We will be back here on Sunday night to get ready for Monday for a new week. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Brendan Glasheen signing off here on Payoff Pitch, Action Network's MLB betting podcast. We are presented by BetMGM. You have a great weekend.